Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Brenda Blackman. For decades, Latino presence in the media has always been a hot topic, from misrepresentation to no representation at all, especially in the English market. But with their natural fuego, Latinos have managed to break barriers and have crossed over to the American mainstream. Joining me now are the founders and producers of AIM TV's Maximus Productions, Robert Rose and Renzo Devia. Thank you for being with us. How did the two of you come together and form this production company?
Well, we both worked at Univision locally in New York, and I worked on the advertising sales side. And Renzo was a promotions.
Producer in WXTV.
Right.
And we basically saw, I guess, the same vision. We saw there was an opportunity to produce programming for Latinos in English. There was a big void for that. And I really believed in producing these type of programming, but how do you get it out there? And that's where Robert came in. And, you know, Robert saw distribution, she had an idea how to distribute the show, and of course, try to get some funding through advertisers and stuff like that. So we just came together and we made it happen.
Yeah, and actually when Renzo, I had been working in Spanish TV for about 2 years, and I had, been doing more than just the typical research. I'd actually, because I was not from New York, I was, I guess, in search of friends, so I would go hang out, and I would actually hang out in the Latin clubs and Latin restaurants and really just soaking up the culture. I love the culture, and that's actually where I met Renzo, even though we both worked at Univision. We had actually never met before, and that's when he told me his vision. I said, you know what, that makes sense. I don't understand why you're not getting anywhere with it. Let me look into this and get back to you. And that's what started me on the path to taking a look at research, taking a look at digging a little bit deeper than the basic facts that most people get. And I said, this makes complete sense. I can't believe anybody hasn't done anything about it. And while I was doing my research, he quit his job and went out and produced pilots. And by the time I got through doing my research and got back to him, he had already produced 3 pilots, 2 in Spanish, 1 in English. And the one in English took off and eventually brought us to where we are today.
Boy, oh boy, you guys have been busy. But let's go back up for just a moment. Traditionally, what were sort of the Latino images that you'd been seeing on TV and in the media?
Well, I've been working television since '95 here at Univision. And basically, most of the programming was geared towards older audience, nothing really young. And it didn't relate to me. I never saw myself on television. I'm American born, but at home I always spoke Spanish. So I was kind of torn between, am I American or am I Latino? And a lot of Latinos here in America feel the same way, and they didn't really have a place where they fit. So in television, it was mostly, the stereotype, either Spanish language television, which is, the girls, and I guess a stereotype. I really wanted to show the positive stories, the untold stories, I really wanted to highlight Latinos playing American football, not only soccer. There's a lot of topics that I thought was really important to tell on television, but I didn't know how to do it.
So you were not going to show a Latino as a maid or a gardener or as a gang member or being victimized.
I wanted to show
them in American life.
Exact. Yeah, I wanted to show those stories. I wanted to interview those people back then. But it was really difficult. I mean, it's difficult to have your own program, so it was a dream. And with Robert, we came together and made the dream come true.
So when you talk about your company reflecting differently than the kinds of images that others have focused on, how do you set the record straight?
Well, it's tough because what you're combating is not only the image that you see on Spanish language TV, you're also combating a lack of an image on English language TV. So most non-Latinos, and I always bring that perspective, and that's why I think we balance each other out, because Renzo's very Latino and I'm now very Latino, in my heart, but I was not Latino when I first met him. And
you're actually from Tennessee?
I'm actually from Tennessee, so I knew nothing. I mean, I couldn't tell you where Puerto Rico was on a map, and I thought it was just one big Mexico, and that was that. And so I really came in with a blank slate. I didn't know anything about Latinos, and so that I think actually served to my benefit because I had no preconceived notions whatsoever. And what I saw is when Renzo told me, what his frustrations were in Hispanic television, I said, that's exactly right. What I'm seeing and what I'm pitching to advertisers and what I'm seeing on Spanish language TV, this does not match up to the reality that I see here in New York City with Latinos, young Latinos. And I said, And I also felt the frustration. Renzo was not the first person to complain about the images of Latinos in the United States. It was almost always all young Latinos felt like and ended up complaining about the fact that Spanish language TV did not appeal to them. And then why weren't they on English language TV? And I just felt like it was a great opportunity to do something about it. You don't get many of these opportunities in television. And the fact that we've been able to be independent and tell the stories that we want to tell, and these are all positive stories, but they're also very entertaining stories. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so we've hung with it for 5 years.
But what do you do about that generation gap when you talk about the older Latinos versus the younger generation?
Well, we focus on the younger, but our main target is English language American-born, U.S.-born Latinos. That's our main focus. Of course, our program hits Spanish language, of course, bilingual, of course, non-Latinos. But basically, our stories really hit home to the Latinos that go to universities, to colleges, all over the United States, the ones that, are very proud of their heritage, of being Latino. And hopefully we inspire them. We try to do stories in both programs, American Latino and Latin Nation, that inspire other Latinos to go out there and become successful here in the States. I think the program also reaches out to the Spanish language Latinos that are, let's say, in a market that's not too big, let's say Tennessee or Nashville, they see themselves on television, because maybe Univision doesn't broadcast there.
Right. Yeah, that's our next growth opportunity. I mean, we're in 100 markets now, and we're in places like Chattanooga, Tri-Cities, Tennessee, Fort Smith, Arkansas. And in some of these cities, there are no Spanish language television outlets. And, this is surprising. Never was an aim of the company actually to be in cities that size. We focus on New York, LA, Miami, Chicago. But now we're in those cities. And I think the success of that is because these are recent arrivals to those cities. They have no outlets for themselves. And we're actually the only outlet for Latinos in that city. So that's pretty fulfilling as well. So we keep those guys in mind, too, when we're producing the shows. But the main mission, as Renzo said, is U.S. born. Why U.S. born? 60% of Latinos in this country are born in the United States. So with all the immigration debate, we forget that. By 2020, 3 out of 4 Latinos will be U.S. born. And they just do not watch Spanish language TV. That's only about 20% of Spanish TV's audience.
A couple of things we want to cover, and one is the viewership. Is it hard to find where the Latino viewers are with the present rating system?
Absolutely is hard. Basically, we're dealing with a system that is equipped for 1975, and it's 2006. And the current system of monitoring Hispanic viewing is heavily dependent upon language, and it puts people into 5 different language categories. And language is one of those things that it sort of is like, what's your favorite food? Well, yesterday it was sushi, today it's Italian. It depends on the situation. So it's almost impossible to 100% accurately determine language. Nielsen Rating Service has built their entire rating service for Hispanics on language. And we're trying to convince them now that it's not language that's important, it's cultural relevance and it's nativity. U.S.-born Latinos, by and large, watch only or mostly English language TV. Non-U.S.-born Latinos, research shows, by and large, watch only or mostly Spanish language TV. It's really as simple as that.
And of course, we have to say that history is being made now with the kind of new programming like Fashion House and Desire, right?
Yeah, we're not the only ones, obviously. There's networks dedicated to this. It's slowly but changing because the audience needs to see themselves on television. They want to see these stories. They want to see themselves represented. Obviously, opening doors for Latino actors. Many Latino actors, like Rita Moreno, for example, always did the stereotype role. But nowadays, the young actors coming up, from Eva Longoria all the way to whoever, they're doing roles now that are definitely breaking the stereotype.
Right, and that's important. I think for us, the short dramas or the English language novellas, as some people call them, it's sort of like a validation of what we've been saying for 5 years, and we're happy to have it because that's 5 nights a week that Latinos now can get woven into a story and actually have something to watch.